In today's episode, Ken sits down with a top-performing entrepreneur, Zach Wagner. With 11 years in sales and 8 years as a business owner, Zach built one of the highest-performing offices in the country. Together, they break down the discipline, leadership, and decisions behind building financial independence and what it really takes to scale a business to the top. Follow for more.
All right, happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm really excited to get our next guest speaker on the KLear channel today, my buddy Zach Wagner. You know, we just spent a few days in California at the Super Bowl together. We won't get into too much of that conversation. Nothing happened out there, nothing crazy at any Maxim parties or any other parties we went to besides the football game. But Zach, thanks for joining us today. Welcome to the KLear channel. You know, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us all over social media. We actually have, we're turning the KLear channel into a podcast now. So we got a couple different places that our people and people in general can go to learn about entrepreneurship, learn about sales, and learn about life and life lessons. So thanks for joining us today, Zach. Appreciate you.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So Zach, yeah, my pleasure. So tell me, can you tell for anyone that's jumping on maybe for the first time, a little bit about your background, you know, where you're from, life growing up, family background, things like that.
Of course, would love to. So I'm born and raised in Maryland, right? So I'm from the state of Maryland, Anne Arundel County area, kind of outside of Annapolis, and I was raised there my whole life. I went to college at Towson University, which is a school in Baltimore,
nice.
right? So
yeah.
Pretty close to home. Both of my parents went to Towson, so I was doing the alumni thing, right? And yeah, Towson was a great school. They have a good business program. I studied business marketing when I was in school. I didn't have a ton of logic or thought process behind picking my major. I think it's kind of a flawed system for college students to have to select. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life when they're 17, 18 years old.
18, yeah.
Like the financially wise decision is if you are going to go to school, you want to make sure you don't switch your major too much because that might extend your schooling. But people don't know what they like, right? I really wanted to keep my studies general because I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my career. I knew that every company is technically a business, right? And every company, even if it's like a not-for-profit business, they still have a sales team, right? Because my mother worked for a nonprofit, right? She was like a director for a company that took care of people with mental disabilities, took care of their group housing and daytime activities, the ARC, right? Which is a pretty big company. And even they have a sales team, a recruiting team, and they're not what you think of when you think of like, big sales, financial sales or Wall Street, but every company had a marketing department. So that was my thought process with that. And my dad's a sports journalist, right? So, he's like kind of like the Naval Academy athletics, like insider, right? Bill Wagner, look him up. He covers Navy football and he's pretty accomplished in that field. And, my thought process was I'll go to school and study business. I wasn't going to be a writer like my father. I was never going to be, my strong suit. I was always more business minded, but I was thinking I'll go into more of the business side of sports, right? That was my original game plan. And I graduated from college. I was working for a couple professional sports teams. I was working for the Bayhawks, which is like a pro lacrosse team in the Annapolis area, Baltimore area. And, pro lacrosse is not super huge yet, right? I think it's a great sport. It's the sport I played growing up in high school and whatnot. So that was cool, but I was really doing similar work with a college degree that I was doing when I was in college. I worked for my athletic department. I worked for Towson. I worked for Loyola, which was like a school nearby. I worked for their athletic department. So I thought I've gotten some work experience. I got to my degree. Now I'll be able to get like a good, entry-level manager job in sports, working for some sort of a sports company or a sports team. Or that was the plan, but I didn't have any formal sales experience, right? And I would get into these interviews because I was trying to get a better, more full-time job. Like I said, I was working for the Bayhawks, and I also had like a little part-time job with the working at the stadium that the Redskins played in with Commanders now.
Oh, no way. Did you know I'm a Redskins fan?
I'm a Ravens fan. But they weren't. I couldn't get a job there. But
yeah. Did you know I'm a Redskins fan though?
What do you say?
Do you know I'm a Redskins fan? I grew up in.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever talked about that. Yeah, so Sterling, Virginia. I was there as a kid. My dad was a diehard Skins fan in the '90s when Mark Rippon and Joe Theismann and the Hogs, and so that was my
glory days. Riggins.
Glory, for sure. I actually have the football. I don't know if you can see it right up here. That football right over there is signed by the Redskins. Art Monk, Mark Rippon, like old school that my dad got many years ago.
I love that.
So anyway, sorry to cut you off.
I'm getting some Ravens gear. I'm like racking it up. I might have to turn my screen. We got the Ravens signed jersey, Ray Lewis right there.
Nice. I see it.
Super Bowl at the Maxim party. I got that Ray Lewis helmet. We were talking about that, Ken, me and you. So.
Oh yeah. They actually they did give it to you.
Yeah.
So I ended up
shipping it out, and it's for charity, and now I got some more Ray Lewis gear. But I was
Mbappe's coming for me. Did I tell you? Actually, they get it.
You got it? No. Yeah. I texted you. Yep. That's cool.
Yeah.
We'll get that in a few weeks. You guys send me a picture. But yeah, man, I love sports. That's like my hobby. That's my passion, and that's kind of bad advice for a lot of people. As they say, follow your passion. And a lot of times, what are you passionate about? We're passionate about things that are your hobbies, and I don't know if you should really make your hobby your career, because a lot of times it ends up ruining that hobby for you, right? But one thing I learned from that brief experience was like I can't get any of these higher up jobs, even in sports, without some sales experience. I need to go get a sales job, which brought me to this industry, right? Opened up. Mm-hmm. I was the guy who graduated from college with the marketing degree. And I said, oh no, I don't do sales. I want to do marketing, which is like so silly to say, right? It contradicts yourself, right? Because the definition of marketing is like increasing sales, right? And you can't do marketing on a larger scale if you don't know how to do sales on a one-on-one basis. But that was me being naive out of school and trying to skip the important grind of how you should start your marketing career, which is in sales. And after 6 months of not getting the position that I wanted, I took a break from the sports and I got into a sales job, and I started in Eric Chapman's company right outside of Baltimore, which was cool because I moved back in with a couple of my college buddies that were doing the 5-year and 6-year plan. And, I was able to still hang out with some of those guys who are finishing up college and get my start in sales. And that was back in 2015. So I'm a little over a decade into this industry. I'm becoming an old wily vet. I feel like at this point. I'm 33. I started off when I was 23, right? And it's crazy to say, right? But I started off selling Verizon Fios and learning how to sell cell phones. We were going residential, right? So we had leads, but all the sales were pretty much cold call selling, impulse sales, which I was.
Were you one of the first people on that program?
Yeah, I was the first. I was the first person to. We got to look up the stats here, but I'm pretty sure I'm the first person to ever knock on a door and sell a cell phone. Yeah, sell a cell phone.
I remember seeing that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. AT&T wasn't really doing that yet. That's a huge program for us now. That's what I'm, really on now is the AT&T side. But Verizon did it first, and I remember going out there with my manager, and on the first day of being able to do it, we'd never been able to do it before, and that was a thing for my resume. As a sales guy, I was the first person to knock a door and sell a cell phone for Verizon ever, like at a door. Wow. They'd always done it retail, and that was cool. That was a very difficult task because we had 20 sales reps and none of them sold on the first day because it's a new thing. But we did it, and we were able to build that program out. And AT&T came and shadowed us like a few months later, and then it went to the AT&T residential side, and that was a cool thing for the resume. And then I spent 2 years working for my manager in Baltimore. I learned how to run sales teams working for him, which was really valuable because I was a great sales guy, but I didn't know how to translate my sales ability to like other people, right? And I really had to get that skill down if I was going to manage a sales business. And a couple years working with Eric and mentoring under him, I got great at running teams. I got great at helping him run his business, and I opened up my my own company at 25 years old in 2017 out in the suburbs of Chicago, right? So that's where I ran my office for 2017 to 2021 really well. And then 2021 to now, I've been in Columbia, South Carolina. My wife and I had a kid. We wanted to get a little closer to family and her side of the family. So
Sure.
I moved from Chicago to South Carolina. I love where I'm at, but I loved Chicago when I was there too.
Love it. So I want to take a few steps back. You mentioned family, mom, dad, different careers.
Yeah.
I remember when you spoke in front of, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 people at one of our conferences I was attending. Yeah. And you spoke a lot about your father and how well respected he was in his industry and the things he's accomplished. I'm sure along the way, something I say to my team a lot in my company is successful people don't do a certain thing. They do things a certain way.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what are some lessons, mom, dad, family-wise, that they taught you that you now, as a leader of a company, teams, people, a parent, anything stand out that you're like, man, they used to tell me this, and I see this every day right now?
Absolutely. Yeah, my father's, I always make a joke, he would have been a great, my parents never did sales, right? So doing sales and entrepreneurship was very, I guess, unknown to them. So they were definitely a little wary when I got into working on commission and whatnot. But the ironic thing is that
my parents were like, you're crazy.
Yeah, my parents were like,
what are you doing? They were engineers, right? Civil engineer, architect. They're like, what are you doing? You don't have a salary? Oh my God.
Yeah. And what about the benefits? And
a
lot of my good friends from high school, I got to give them credit too. I'm going to give my parents credit. And a lot of my buddies from high school were, they played on the sports teams, but they were also really smart and they got great grades. And a lot of them are engineers, Ken, right? So I'm Jones affected with, this class of guys, and they're so smart and doing well, and they're getting 80, 75K salaries out of college, getting the engineer jobs, getting the really good accounting jobs. And I'm comparing myself to them and saw how they carried themselves professionally. And I think that kind of made me feel like I had to find a way to be equally successful or more successful. And then, my dad's a writer, totally no commission or anything like that, but he's a great sales guy. He's very charismatic. He does his own podcast now with the Navy sports thing. And it's ironic because he didn't know sales when I was doing it, but now he's booking deals for sponsors for his podcast, and he's closing deals, and he's doing the entrepreneur thing along with the newspaper that he's writing for. But they always had a standard on Zach, whatever you end up doing, you need to do well at it. Right. And I think seeing my dad get some awards, he just got a big one. He got National Sports Writer of the Year for Maryland. Finally, he'd been working decades in the industry, had never gotten that award, but he got it this past year. He got that award, and then I got promoted to consultant, which was kind of cool. But he had been getting, trophies and stuff like that. And I think that sets a standard of if you're going to do something, win at it. Right. So my mom's very organized. She brought, I think, the structure and the organization and temper expectations as well. And I think that's in sales. A lot of people think it's just about being charismatic and having a big personality, but it's really more about listening. And you have to be an organized person if you want to scale your business. You can't just be a guy that wings things. And I think she gave me that. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So you fall into this sales company in the DC, Maryland area, right? I know my buddy Eric. You learn from him. You go through the day-to-day, work with him, partner with him for a few years. And at the ripe age of 24, you said?
25, I was running a company. Yeah,
Start your first business.
Yep.
What was that first 30 days like? Was it scary? I know what it was like for me. And I was driving to Columbus, Ohio, my first company, 23 years old. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? You were driving to Chicago.
Yeah. I was driving into downtown Chicago because I was living in the suburbs, and I was driving downtown to get trained. And that it was surreal, right? Hey, I've been doing this industry. I love our field, Ken, because in our sales business, we train the sales guys on how to run companies while they're working for us. So they are prepared, right? I was prepared in theory. I'd been running Eric's business, but it was never my business. So I felt like, it was the same things I was doing on a day-to-day in Maryland, but it's just different when it's your name on the door. It's cool. It's surreal, but there's pressure there. I think every new business owner suffers from a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, am I worthy of running this company? Do I really deserve to be an employer? Especially when you're a younger guy, like I was when I became an employer of young men and women. I'm 25, right? So I had to make sure I was hanging my hat on my resume. Like I had done so much, and I had so many accomplishments and a track record of doing great at sales and working with people. It didn't matter how young I was. I had done so much. I think I needed to hang my hat, and I'm a confident guy. And like, remember what you've accomplished so far, and you can do this. You do deserve it. To help me get out of that mind frame and the headspace. But it's awesome. It's really exciting opening a business. It obviously is a little scary. I was fully trained and prepared, but as prepared as you can be to take the first step. But I'd never lived in the Midwest either, right? That was new. The people are a little different, but people are people. Sales is sales, and I stuck to the basics. I stuck to what I knew foundationally. Didn't try to reinvent the wheel, and the first 30 to 60 days of running my office didn't go super well as far as like the business profiting, right? But I was able to get it going at day 90, and I ended up breaking some records and having a lot of success in my first year. But yeah, it was an awesome experience.
I was telling my team this morning how I mentioned it. One of the guys that I promoted recently, he called me at 7:30, 7:40 this morning. And I was like, hey, where are you at? He's like, I'm pulling into my office. And his team doesn't get in until 10. Yeah. And I was like, oh, why are you there so early? He goes, oh, I got things to do. I got some interviews starting at 8 o'clock. I got to do this until 8:30. I got to do this till 9. My team will get in at 9:30. I got to do that at 9, and walk through his morning with me. And I said to him, I said, you're starting to get it. And he's like, what? I was like, you're starting to get it. You're finally realizing that, hey, you can run at your pace. It's your company. And he was at the gym at 6:15 this morning.
Yeah. I love that.
Right? I was like, listen, that's what it takes. You are starting a business from scratch. I don't care what company on the planet is. You are going to have to grind 12, 14-hour days, 18 hours, like whatever it takes. You have to grind. And so, I love it. I love that piece of the business. I mean, you and I know, like, looking back in it, we're so grateful for it and the challenge of it, the fun of it. I almost miss it sometimes because it's the structure, and as we've set things up, like, we don't often have to go to that world. So it's a love and hate, kind of glad we don't.
No, I love it. I love it because it's interesting. You can have a lot of successes, and you've had a lot of successes over your career, Ken, and I've started getting some really big wins. The $1 million bonus that we both triggered, and we both got paid $1 million bonus in the beginning of this year. And that was like amazing to receive, but it's so weird. I feel like you look back on the tough times with more fondness when you're like reflecting on your career. You think about like the crazy, getting things started, not having it figured out, trying to save the business, trying to get the business bank account flowing and grow the office, and like
get it out of the red.
Back on the Wild West, and like the harder times with more, I guess, like, fondness is the best way I can put it. Like, when you're reminiscing about that. You actually don't reminisce so much about, I remember getting that big award, because building it feels better than almost getting it, which is an interesting thing I've learned over the years.
Yeah, agreed. So tell me this: what advice do you have for young leaders, young up and comers in the business, whether in sales, leadership? They're dreaming. They're in the day to day. They're working hard. We got a lot of people in our organization that watch this channel, and they love the advice from the newest consultants and newest rising stars, studs in the business. What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, and I know people watch, this channel from our industry and other industries, right? Because the advice is interesting. Like the advice I've always gotten in this field, it doesn't just apply to our business. It applies to,
Right.
what it takes to be a millionaire anywhere, right? And one thing that's becoming extremely apparent, especially in this economy, right? Whether we're in a recession or not, or the economy's, I think people are feeling the inflation. I think the middle class is feeling a little squeezed, right? I think home ownership is something that is getting more difficult, right? And something that people need to learn, young professionals across the country, is that it's really, really difficult to have a great life financially, buy a home in a reasonable time, your dream home, right? Have the vacations you want. Like it doesn't have to be this settled lifestyle. You can be successful, but you're going to have to go into a position where you own your own business. It's extremely hard to like be a person that gets paid 7 figures working for somebody else, right? So my big piece of advice is no matter where you're at, our field obviously does this, which is great. That's why I'm really passionate about what we do, because I'm able to equip my employees and set them up where they get their own business. I train them up, they work for me, and then they go run their own company. So I feel good about that versus like employing someone that I know is never going to hit their dreams because they work for me for 20, 30 years, right? I feel good about what we do because we pass on the opportunity, right? But, being a millionaire in this field, being a millionaire in any sales field, being a millionaire accountant, there's millionaires that are plumbers, right? Like what does that career path look like, right? It starts off with, first of all, you have to learn the business. You're probably going to have to work for somebody, right? So If you're an accountant and you want to be a millionaire and accountant or a millionaire lawyer, right? You're going to have to start off working for somebody where you can learn the industry, right? And you gain experience, you get really confident and competent at the field. And if you really want to make it on your own, you're going to have to feel like confident enough to leave working for that person and start your own business, right? And if you're an accountant that runs your own accounting firm, but it's just you can only take on so many clients. You probably won't make $1 million a year if you're an accountant by yourself and you can't take on a lot of jobs, right?
Sure.
It's got to start with you. And then you learn how to hire and train employees, right? And then you can take on massive amounts of jobs. Same thing with being a plumber, right? Like you got to work for a plumber, learn how to do everything. You go on, get your own truck, maybe you start your own business. You can only do so many jobs yourself, but you do a great job. You build a reputation. People start going to you so much so with jobs that you have to hire now a team, right? And that's how you become a millionaire in that industry. HVACing, same thing. Like becoming successful in any field looks the same. It's like you work for someone, you get confident enough to go out on your own, you build up your clientele list where you start hiring a team that can do more jobs, your business grows in revenue, boom, that's what it looks like, right? So that's what we do, obviously, Ken, but I always try to compare, like, this is just business in general, not exclusive to learning sales, right? Now, as far as people who are in our industry, this is why I love our field. There's nowhere that you're going to work where the business owner wants to teach you their job and then build you up where you leave their business. Like, they don't want you to leave. They want you to stay working for them and retain you as a top employee, right? But in our field, I feel good that, I promoted Gabby to Louisiana. She's running her own business in her 20s. Nate to Alabama. I got Mario in Texas, Kyle in Dallas, Texas, Mackenzie in Augusta, Lewis in Baton Rouge, Brittany in New Orleans. Like, I have a whole team of entrepreneurs that, like, I got paid a fat 6-figure bonus from a big company like an Amazon or a Verizon or an AT&T. I get paid a bonus to develop and open up those branches so that they can scale the Fortune 500 company's business. But now they get their own piece of the pie, which like I said, I feel really honorable and good about doing that. So not sure if that answered your question, but I think for any young professional, they gotta get into a place where they can go run their own business.
Yeah, and listen, there's obviously a ton of books out there, right? Like I don't know if you know Rich Dad Poor Dad, and
Yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki type of stuff, and the four quadrants of wealth. I mean, people talk about first you got to learn how to be an employee. You got to learn how to be a professional. You got to learn how to be great and be amazing at being an employee working in a business. Then if you get a chance to start and maybe it's leave that business or start your own business, a small business, learn how to run a small business, learn how to run day to day, being the leader, all aspects of that business. Then it's big business. Now you learn how to scale that business and maybe multiply that business. And then if you're fortunate enough to have a lot of income and extra revenue and disposable income, you move into the world of real estate and other things and passive income and 7 different
cash
revenue.
flow quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki. It's a classic, right? Like I said, it's not unique to what we do. This is just how it works. And the good thing they say about Rich Dad Poor Dad in that when they're talking about that cash flow quadrant is over 90% of people never make it out of E. Most people always they stay in step 1, which is be an employee, and they never graduate out of E, right? So, that's tough to hear, right? And like I said, with the way cost of living is nowadays and taxes and what housing prices look like, it's hard having a job, even a good job, and it turning into like I hit all my financial goals that I always dreamed of doing, So,
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's the risky route isn't as risky as the safe route. I learned in my 20s, right? And doing when everyone's going right, those who go left, I've noticed, and I said this to my team again this morning, it's like, you got to learn how to do things that other people aren't willing to do or other people just simply can't do. I'm not 7'2". I don't dribble a basketball. I wish I was a better golfer and I could be, 3 or 4 under every round. Yeah. I wish I was Cristiano Ronaldo. Soccer is my passion too. Like Messi, I wish I could bend the ball like Beckham. It just, that world isn't my world to make 6-7 figures or whatever. But willing to do in my 20s, just like in yours, we went door to door, business to business. We learned this concept and then now have scaled other pieces to it, similar to it, to hit some bigger goals. So
I'll tell you something funny, Ken, and not to stop you from your next question, but people ask and they see my house, they see that I'm kind of younger, right? This guy's clearly in his 30s, I have a nice, $1 million house. I just got a pool put in, right? I remember the movers coming in. These people always ask me like, dude, I got to ask you, what do you do?
What do you do?
And what I used to say when I wasn't so confident in myself, when I was just a sales guy and I was knocking doors, my friends would ask me, what do you do? And I would always church it up. If you ever seen Joe Dirt, don't try to church it up, boy, right? Like, don't try to church it up. I'm like, I'm an account representative for Verizon. I do their sales.
Lead generated sales.
Zach, you knock on doors and make sales. Like, it's what I did. It just didn't sound that cool I didn't have the money yet when I was just learning the sales, right? Yeah. But it's funny now that I have the money and I'm making 7 figures a year. And these guys are moving my couch in and they're older than me and they're, no offense, but they're older than me and they're fucking like installing my pool and moving my stuff in and hanging it up. And like, what do you do? And I always say door-to-door sales. And the look on their face is like, first they think I'm kidding. They think I'm messing. I'm like, yeah, dude, I did all of this in door-to-door sales. And they're like, they laugh and I'm like, I'm serious. Or they say, what? And I'm like, yeah, that's why I get paid a lot of money. Because they're in such disbelief that works. And they're in such like, it shocks them. There's no way. I would never do that. Of course you would never do that. That's why you're moving my shit into my house. And I'm the one with the $1 million house is because I can and will do that, right? Like if the big companies need it, that's demand. But a lot of people are terrified to be told no. They're horribly terrified and have anxiety about talking to someone they don't know, knocking on a door, doing sales, working on commissions, but the demand is there. So if the demand is there, but the supply is not there, that makes the people that can do it more valuable.
You're willing to do it.
People who can do it and willing to do it get to skip the line financially and skip the line professionally. That's why I was
Yeah.
able to make 300K running my office when I made 300 and some $1,000 as a 25-year-old kid, right? Well,
Yeah.
because how am I able to do that in 2 years? Well, I was willing to go knock on doors, cold call for big businesses and learn how to build teams that can do that. Something that a lot of people said they would never do. That's why I'm able to get what I get faster, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, 100%.
It's like they're like, "Oh my God, I would never do that." I'm like, exactly. That's why this is working, right?
Yeah.
So
I remember in Atlanta, it's so funny you say it. So when I was building my door-to-door business, my 20s, 26, I got promoted to consultant and life was good. And you know how it goes, bonuses wise at that point. So I bought a condo in northern Atlanta in this high rise called Park Towers. And it was like the corner suite, fourth floor, top floor, kind of back unit, biggest unit in the place. And there's a concierge desk downstairs that I would always go down and work out in the morning and do my thing. And, I'd have the guys over to the house, the different groups on Friday, whatever, hanging out. And we'd have always these gatherings and team nights, whatever. And at first, the people at the concierge, they have to call me to let them in to get through the, different layers of security to go to my unit.
yeah.
And one day they caught me as I'm going to the gym, like, hey, Ken, can we ask you something? Because like, what do you do? All these people coming over, they're all young, they're all fun, they're outgoing, they're charismatic, they're good looking. And I'm like, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. And I just walked off.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, come on, man. I'm like, I'll tell you next time. Hey, Ken. And after multiple times, finally I was like, hey, I do door-to-door sales. They're like, come on, man. Why do you always mess with us? I'm like,
Same
dude,
thing,
I told
man.
you. If I told you, you wouldn't believe me. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, these people that are coming in, they work in my office. They're learning sales. They're in the field. We go sell for, back then it was Bell South, AT&T.
Yep.
And we help launch this product called Uverse, new fiber technology. They're rolling it out everywhere. The TV ads, the mailers, they're not working. They have us, their feet on the street. And they're like, oh my God, that's you? I'm like, yeah.
And people who are smart get it. Some of the ones, they get it. I had a guy like doing my gutters and he's like, that makes sense. And I'm like, you get it, right?
Yeah.
And,
I've never had, and I'm sure you travel. Obviously, we all travel. And sometimes, I don't know if you fly or, get upgraded first class or buy those tickets. I don't often buy them, but I get upgraded based on my status with Delta.
Yep.
And there's never been a time I've sat in a seat next to someone that's pretty successful. And they're like, hey, so, same thing, young guy in business, blah, blah. What do you do? Hey, we're hired by large companies. We explain the concept and like, oh, that is so smart. So smart. They've never said, I don't get it. I don't, whatever. They get it because smart business people.
When I was knocking doors, Ken, the nice neighborhoods were always very encouraging. Keep doing what you're doing, right? And when I was in the neighborhoods that were maybe not so nice, or I was talking to some of my peers who weren't successful yet, they were the ones who were like, get a real job, right? But it was interesting. The people who had money and they're driving the Porsche and they had a mansion in Annapolis on the water, they were like, oh, this is exactly how I got started, right? Like, It's just interesting. You're learning how to, you're learning how to eat what you hunt, right? You're learning how to make your own paycheck. Like, this is what it looks like, whether that was exactly what they did or something similar, they always understood it. And yeah, the airport thing, I got a funny airport story, right? I keep, when we promote managers, Ken, as you know, we get paid that bonus, us, six-figure bonus. I always try to keep the little checks, right? And, I remember walking through with these things and they're like, pro golfer, right? They always think I've gotten two people who say, hey, we were taking bets on what do you do? Because I'm like walking through the airport with a like $100,000 check, or I have a few for 200 up there. And they're like, pro golfer, right? And I'm like, door-to-door sales. And they're like, nah, he's messing with us, right? Like every time, man. Just walk through with the big checks. They say 85K, 160K,
Yeah.
It's funny, but
yeah, you listen, I think life tends to give people what they earn, right? What they deserve. And I'll tell you what I've noticed about you in our industry. Obviously we've been peers and I've seen you kind of grow up at this thing. And the when you give and you serve and you go I know you go out of your way, like you just mentioned, people are visiting your town and learning from you. Yeah. And I'm sure you've had a team night and gone out and had drinks with them, spend time with them, and for no intention for financial return. It's just the people helping people philosophy that we live by. And whether somebody works with us for a week or a month or a year, we know that being a good example, being good parents, being good husbands and family people, and taking care of the community, it's all good. Good karma, good ripple effect in the universe. So it's awesome. Any final words? Any final thoughts? And I appreciate you joining me today. It's been great.
Yeah, of course. Final thoughts. One thing that I'm on lately, Ken, is money management and time management. Right. I think people, if they want to be entrepreneurs, I think just like the cash flow quadrant we talked about, you work as an employee and then you move into small business or salesperson. It's where a lot of people who are in sales, if they're working on commission, they're already moving into stage 2, which is S. You determine and dictate your income, right? And I always teach my guys, you work for me and I cut your paycheck, but I'm not really the one that pays you. You pay yourself. And right now, as an individual independent salesperson, you need to run yourself like you're running a business. You control the revenue. You control the expenses. Are you tracking these things like a big boy or a big girl, right? Because if you're going to run a business on a larger scale, you need to know how to run the business of you. Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of kids who they are really, they ignore the finances because they don't want to look at it. They don't want to look at the credit card debt. They don't want to look. It's like they want to just pretend they want to pretend like it doesn't exist and live in the clouds. And I can't do that. You need to be great with your money. First, have a break even. Do you have a legitimate, organized break even of your fixed costs, your variable costs? There's apps that can help you track this nowadays, but you can really do it pretty easily yourself if you just look. Are you tracking what your commissions are coming in? And, I think if you just start running the business of one, when it is a business of one, legitimately, it's going to help you when you're working with a team or getting your first office and running a small business. If you're bad with your money when you're an independent salesperson, you're probably going to be bad with your money when you get more of it, right? The habits.
If you ever do.
The habits never change, right? Unless you change them early. More money doesn't fix it, right? And then time management. I teach everything through Stephen Covey, right? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Great book. Putting first things first, right? Stephen Covey talks about big rocks, little rocks, and prioritizing and understanding. I don't even like to call it time management. I like to call it time optimization, right? Are you maximizing the most important resource that you have in your life, which is your time? It's not just scheduling things. It's also strategy, right?
Sure.
So go learn big rocks, little rocks. Go learn how to do a great break even and the first step to being great with your money is awareness. The first place to being great with your time is awareness. Last thing I'll say is, Ken, I work with young people all the time and I work with older folks all the time, and they're working for me in their 40s. They never had a mentor, and I got, it's ironic, but I'm working with them. And Ken, I hear people say, I just don't have enough time to do the job, or I just don't have enough time to do the management thing. And anyone who's ever said, I don't have enough time, I always say, that's crazy. Pull out your planner. They never have one. And anyone who's
use it.
They don't have one, pull out your planner. They don't have one, or it's blank.
Yeah.
Anyone who said, I've never gotten someone with a great plan and a planner that's filled out, they don't say that to me, right? Because they know they're in control. Same thing with money. Zach, I'm not making enough money. Zach, I need to make more money. Okay, great. Pull out your break even. They never have one. First step is awareness. You're in control. You can do it. Take accountability, right? That's the advice I'd give to people who are just starting out. So
love it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Well, Zach, appreciate you joining me. Obviously, great hanging at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Bad Bunny was pretty bad. It was pretty awesome.
I love bad in a good way.
No, Bad Bunny is awesome. Bad meaning good. I love Bad Bunny.
You guys make that assessment. I thought he was great.
I thought, yeah, he was good.
It was better live than it was on TV, right? So I'll be at the next one too, Ken. We'll hang out again. I love it.
Me too. Okay, buddy. Thanks so much for your time, guys. Again, join us on YouTube. Please share the channel. See you guys next time.